in every single department. They were just absolutely ruthless. So there was an opportunity there if we'd have got to that final. And unfortunately, we didn't. So it for me, it was kind of immaterial whether PSG won it. I never looked at it and thought to myself, oh, well, at least we lost to the champions. You know, I didn't look at it like that, really. I looked at it as a missed opportunity over 2 legs, not getting to the final. That's how I looked at it.
Where are you at with that, Kenny?
Well, first and foremost, we have to. The best team won. You know, if you
Arteta reckons we were the best team in the champs, though.
Yeah, maybe that was. You know, hindsight is 2020, and you know, reflections like even double that. And I think maybe, well, you asked him the question straight after the game. I'm sure if you asked Mikel the question a few days afterwards, he'll put his hands up and say, you know, we lost to the better side. You know, if Arsenal fans want to take context of it, well, what they've done is that they probably would have kept the score down, but they still would have lost to PSG anyway. PSG, if you take the whole 180 minutes, I think we were probably on top for 30 minutes of that. But apart from that, PSG was sharper tactically. They passed the ball better than us. And what they did better than us and what took us by surprise is that their work rate off the ball was just phenomenal, especially in the first movement. You had Kvaratskhelia, Vitinha, Neves. You had players like Bakola were coming on. You had Doué. Off the ball, they worked hard, you know, and that's what really took us by surprise. We've probably thought our work rate would probably get us through our physical rate, but they matched us physically. And off the ball, they protect that lead phenomenally.
Every English team they've played, they've combated this physicality stuff that everyone says. Liverpool, Villa, and Arsenal.
Completely taken by surprise by the way their defence is shaped. When you know Robertson kept on putting those crosses in, and McKennie also said, "Boom," headed it out. They knew it was coming. They had this sort of sixth sense on how us, Villa, and Liverpool play. And they deserved it. And you know what they did in that final? Their youth killed Internazionale. Internazionale looked old. You know, DeMarco just went right in, weak click, boom, off you go, add in. It was ruthless. It was like basically like a knife through butter, sharp.
Facts.
And
which is sad.
Not only that, it was also the way they play, their freedom, they play with so much freedom, you know. Players are sort of joining in attack from midfield. Vitinha's got like a free roll. He's kind of left. He's on the right. He's picking the ball up in the centre.
You can't pick them up full stop, DJ.
No, and it's nice. It's refreshing to see. And this is what I want at my football club. You know, when they get in the final third, you know, they've got so many options and they look dangerous. You know, and they get the ball into transition they get the ball from transition very, very quickly. Whereas we seem to sort of slow it down. We'll take an extra touch in midfield, then we'll look to pass sideways, and then we'll take another couple of touches, and it kind of all breaks down. And it was refreshing to see PSG the way they was playing. And I knew that our number was up when I watched PSG in that first leg against Liverpool. They absolutely battered them. I know Liverpool came out with a sort of 1-0 win, but even the Liverpool manager, Arnie, turned around and said, we got out of jail there.
It was smash and grab.
We've literally blown up the bars and escaped. You know what I mean? I mean, it was a case of they absolutely got hammered. And I looked at that PSG, because I went to the Emirates early in the season when we beat them 2-0, and that they were miles different team. And I looked at PSG against Liverpool, and I said, that's the team that's winning the Champions League. You know, so, I mean, big up to PSG. They've done, it was nice to watch. For any football fan, it's refreshing to see a team play like that. It really is.
I think you're bang on. Beyond the obvious for you two, then, obviously, you can't help but be jealous of PSG. I do think there's certain things PSG do that we do that are kind of similar, but like, beyond the obvious, what have they got that we don't have? Or what should we aspire to have based on what PSG have and we don't have?
Two players for every position, DJ. They have 2 players for every position, particularly on the flanks. And what they have as well is youth as well, hungry players, players who are willing to learn and are only going to get better. And in essence, all those players that they brought on, they're future internationals as well. Future internationals. They're a team. I'm not saying we're not a team, but we've still got gaps in our side that need filling big time. And we have weaknesses in our team which need to be corrected. I didn't really see any weaknesses in PSG. Don't get me wrong, they evolved because, as DG said, that game at the Emirates Stadium was our best performance of the season. It was easily our best performance. From the goals we scored, from Havertz and Saka, not in particular order, and the way we defended. We made sacrifices when PSG had the ball. We didn't result into very few chances of any at all. That was easily our best performance. But what's happened is that we didn't really carry it out throughout Europe. Whilst PSG, from the Man City game when they were 2-0 down, that was a different PSG. That's a different PSG. And from then on, it was a case where that's how they played. And they never looked back from that Man City game. Different players. Dembele made up with Enrique. Players finally realised that you have to work hard to beat the top teams in Europe, and you have to make sacrifices.
Facts.
And that's what they did. So that's what they do better. Don't get me wrong. Our team makes sacrifices for Mikel. There's no doubt about it. They work the nuts off for him, and they obey him tactically. However, there's still a few players this season didn't do so that were bang off form. We had more players off form this season than we had players in form. And that cost us in the league. Not so much in the Champions League, but when you played a real team, as I said earlier, the better team won. I know there's a lot of people who came out with stats. I say to people stats, but stats, I'll say it respectfully. Put your calculators away, put your pens away, and watch the bloody match. Because you watch the
stats don't lie, but they don't tell the truth.
That the better team won. Yeah, we had chances. We took them by surprise. And they're right. Donnarumma was fantastic. Made some great saves, but Donnarumma was one of the best goalers in the world. You expect him to make the spectacular saves because that's what he's there for. But
that's his job.
After they weathered the storm, there was only one team going to Munich, and it weren't us.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Kenny says, but I will also add on to that is the one thing that they've got, they had players in form, and secondly, they've got 2, maybe 3 players with creativity. I'm really struggling to look at where our creativity lies, and
or match winners.
People will turn around and say, "Well, Martin Odegaard," but Martin Odegaard, let's be honest, has not been nowhere near the Martin Odegaard that we've seen in previous seasons. All season long, right from day one, he's just not been on it. And people say, "Oh, since his injury," but if you look back at the games, he just hasn't been around. So if you take Martin Odegaard out of the equation, where else is the creativity coming from?
Saka and Rice, probably.
Possibly Saka, but from a central midfield player, you're talking minimum. Whereas if you look at PSG, they've got Kvaratskhelia, they've got Vitinha, they've got Doué, they've got creativity, and then you've got Dembele coming in little pockets and making things happen. So they've got, like, in attacking third, they've got like 4 or 5 players. And that's without their fullbacks that when they push on become effective as well. So this is what we need to look at, because their creativity all over the park is miles ahead of us. We're looking at 1 or 2 players, and that's if they're at it. If Saka gets isolated, if Saka gets sort of 2 or 3 players man marked, then you've got no creativity really from the right. So if they lock down the right, you got nothing. You got absolutely nothing. And this is what's worrying for me about the players that we've got coming in. Are they going to give us that creativity that we're going to need to go to that next level?
I wish I could disagree. I wanted to ask you something as well, yeah, because obviously Dembele, like Kenny lightly touched on it about Osman Dembele. He's defending, he's doing all the other facets. He's typically, obviously, he can play up front, but he's typically known as a winger. He's playing as a false nine. Is that something you lot can see Mikel Arteta mimicking? Maybe not in terms of quality, but you've got your false nine, which theirs is Dembele, ours is probably Kai Havertz, and then you've got your plan B, which we'll get onto it, but could be a Gyökeres or Sesko. For them, it's Ramos.
Yeah, but I think false nines. To be honest, our game, especially in England and in Europe, is basically a game of false nines. You know, if you were to put your hand on heart and say, tell me the traditional strikers, they're few and far between now because of the way we play, because of the fact that the work rate that is needed off the ball. You know, the striker's got to be the first defender.
Exactly.
You know, most importantly as well, the striker has to be able to operate in all areas of the front three. You know, he has to accept that he has to accept slow build-ups now.
He's like a sacrificial lamb.
When his chance arises, then he has to be able to be there. You know, the reason why Haaland's unique is because of the goals he scored. Is unique is because he's just a dying breed. Him and Harry Kane.
He's an anomaly, really, in the modern game.
Yeah, and you could probably put Mbappe there, but Mbappe's different. Mbappe can play up top. He scored 31 goals at La Liga goals. You can't knock him for that. No matter whether you criticise him, whether you blame him for the fact that Real Madrid didn't go too deep in the Champions League as they normally do, or they didn't win the La Liga. In his first season, he scored 31 goals. You could call it a Farmers League, whether you like it or not. The fact he scored 31 goals.
It's ridiculous.
Haaland, has been hit and miss, but still scored over 20 Premier League goals for his third consecutive season. But mostly, in terms of like the false number 9, Arsenal have been doing that for quite a while. Could you seriously, hand on heart, say that Jesus was a genuine centre forward?
No, we knew he wasn't.
But that was a player that when he came to us in the 22-23 season, he was a player that was the missing link. He was a player that was that can help us romp to the league. But we
helped
knew
Martinelli and Odegaard greatly to back up your.
We knew that when he first came to the football club, his best goals total was 14 goals.
Yeah, no, it's fact. I mean, we have been pretty much playing with a false 9, and the problem is if you play with a false 9, you still need players running from deep from midfield to make things happen. And I've been saying it for ages. I mean, yeah, we need a striker, but we also need a very, very, very good creative another very good creative midfield player,
Facts.
A dynamic midfield player, like a Paul Merson, David Rocastle of the days gone by, Aaron Ramsey, that sort of player, and we haven't had that. We haven't had that. We haven't had that midfield player that gets the ball and sort of makes things happen, makes the runs, opens things up for that false 9 or the out-and-out striker to kind of make runs and, so it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked this season. And, whether we've got to revert back to the old style centre forward, getting balls into the box, trying to get him through, trying to play through balls for him to run onto. That may have to be another road. It may have to be an avenue we have to go down because teams have found us out now. Managers find it easy to play against us. Teams find it easy to play against us. We're not scary anymore. People, they come to the Emirates and they feel they can get something now. When we go away, we tend to kind of struggle a lot in large areas of the game. We tend to struggle and break teams down, and then when we are on the back foot, we look vulnerable. And if you take away the defence, we would be absolutely really
in trouble.
We would be in trouble, 100%. So for me, what Kenny said, we've pretty much been playing with a false 9. pretty much for the last sort of 2 seasons on and off, really. And that has to change. I mean, if we do bring a striker in, we may have to just revert back to the old-fashioned, old-fashioned centre forward.
I can't see Arteta doing that though, man. And I think big up Real Gems. He said interchangeable is an important part of PSG, and I understand it in that we've got a unique brand. Arteta wants to put his style, but I think he's got to a point, touching on what DJB said, in that it is quite predictable. It is quite easy to suss us out. We all know about the low blocks and all of that kind of stuff that is almost our kryptonite. Do you think we need more interchangeability in our own team? Because we don't really see our attackers swap flanks. Like, I can't really tell you the last time I've seen that.
Oh, definitely. I've been saying it. I've been saying it on and off the streams, and this is what I mean. You know, we talk about plan Bs and everything else, and you know, I'm not here to sort of like get into Arteta. People know where I stand with the Football Manager and that. But when you look at games, when you look at in-game play, you have to take chances. You have to take gambles, especially when you know you've got a left winger that can play in the centre. You know. Especially when you know you've got options. You know, you've got options to bring Martinelli off the left and play him down the middle, because then you can put Trossard on the left. You've got options there. You've got options. I mean, people say about Odegaard in the 10, but Odegaard's position, he can play in an 8 as well. Do you know what I mean? And I've never seen him try something different. Odegaard on an 8. Wanyeri comes on in a 10. So now you've got Saka, Wanyeri, Odegaard in an 8, Martinelli down the middle, Trossard on the left. Suddenly now it looks a bit, hang on a minute. Didn't anticipate Arsenal setting up like this today.
Exactly.
I thought it was going to be Marino up front. Saka, let's nullify Saka. Let's take him out of the game. Martinelli on the left, he's not having a great season. Job done. We can come away with a point or maybe 3 points. But this manager don't seem to try anything like that. He doesn't want to try things. He just wants to play the same way. And then you're hoping on set pieces, corners, moments in games. And for me, this is what's got to change going into next season. He has to gamble. He has to try and get the best out of the players he's got in the starting 11. If we're going to make these signings, and probably we'll get onto that, but if we're going to make these signings, then you've got to make the best with what you've got at the football club, because Martinelli needs something different. He needs his mojo back, because he's lost it, whether you like it or not. And a lot of Arsenal fans ain't going to like me saying it. He has fallen off of a cliff
for the last 2 years, man.
Unbelievable. He's unrecognisable. So he needs to try something. So when Martinelli did come into that centre, I'm not sure, was it against Southampton? I can't remember the game he played in down the middle.
He's flirted with those kind of things. I'm sure he did it against Liverpool for at least a half or something.
And he goes against Liverpool and he goes and scores. And you just think to yourself, like, why didn't he do it against PSG? We're going out the Champions League, the biggest competition in Arsenal's
die on your sword
that we haven't won. We're going out. We're like 2-0 down on aggregate. Whatever. Just try something different. Do you know what I mean? And this is why, you're not absolutely piling into the manager. You're throwing the questions out there to ask the reasons why can't he do that. It's not as if we're playing players completely out of their position. By switching Odegaard and by switching Martinelli, they're players that can handle that switch.
And also switch back as well. Like what you see with PSG.
Switch back. But he's not prepared to do that. So for me, I think going into next season, we have to. I mean, ignore the signings that are coming in. We have to make the best, and we have to make the most of the players we've got, and try and get the best out of them, and try and get them excited again. Because at the moment, it's predictable to watch. It's boring to watch. It's the same old. It's sideways and backwards. Martinelli's running down blind alleys where he can't get his head up. Saka's getting man marked 2 or 3 banked up. So he's running into brick walls.
Rice can only do so much.
He's running into brick walls. So then you're turning around and you're going, right, okay, so that's Saka out the game. Martinelli's out the game. Who are we looking at? Oh, no, we're looking at Odegaard. Well, we're not looking at Odegaard because Odegaard's now out of form. He's undroppable. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, what's happening here, guys? So, yeah, it's still worrying for me, DG.
Why is he reluctant to change or gamble then for you lot?
Well, the thing about it is, one thing is that you only seen our wide players swap flanks when Saka was injured. You saw it quite a bit in the second half of the season. Tottenham game. There was certain games. After January, especially the Spurs game, where we were swapping flanks, but we were only swapping flanks because we had Trossard and Martinelli. But when Saka's in the team, we never seem to swap flanks. The only time we seem to try it was in PSG. There was that instance when Saka, created that chance for I think he created a chance. We put a cross in, and was it Martinelli who felt to get on the end of it?
Yeah, it was Martinelli. That close there, wasn't it? Yeah.
Or against Madrid when Saka drifted in for the chipped goal as well.
So that's when we sometimes do it. But 9 out of 10 times, Bukayo Saka, when he's in the side, I don't see him ever sort of like divert to the left or divert to the right. So for me, I do have that kind